The company was founded in New Jersey.
Boo. Sorry, go on.
New Jersey is one of the 3 best states in the tri-state area.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of Beyond the Exchange, where we confront executives about their misdeeds. I'm kidding. But in fact, we do have a special guest today on a first of its kind episode for Beyond the Exchange. And I'll turn it over to my leader and in many ways father figure, Brian King, to intro our guest.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that amazing kickoff, Jeremy. So today's guest is someone I'm not only excited to introduce for his incredible career, but also because he's a good friend of mine. Michael Blaugrund is a Harvard grad who was I know.
You didn't tell me we were going to have a Harvard grad on.
Yeah, you know.
I would have worn my tie.
I like to save some special things. But he was also a vice president at NASDAQ and a chief operating officer at the New York Stock Exchange, where he and I actually had the opportunity to work together. But today, he's leading the charge at DriveWealth as their CEO. Now, DriveWealth, I would love to get into a little bit more about what DriveWealth is, but they've recently received some pretty incredible accolades, including CNBC named it as one of the top tech companies in the world, also recognized by Financial Technology Report as a top 25 wealth tech company. It made Inc. magazine's 5,000 list. It received Financial Technologist's Most Influential Technology Firms of 2024 and FinTech Global's Wealth Tech 100 list, which is an amazing list. And I'd love to know who your PR people are so we can get in on that action too. But Michael, thank you again for joining us today. We're thrilled to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's great to see you again, Brian. It's great to meet Jeremy. And I haven't been chagrined by an intro in quite a while, so you've done it.
Well, so the first real question that I have for you is, how much do you miss working with me?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I don't know if the English language has the vocabulary to capture that kind of expansiveness. Working with Brian, we sort of worked in parallel at the exchange. He was, a sort of deep expert in the ETF space, and also had done a lot of other work at a competitive exchange, and brought a lot of insight to the group. Every once in a while, we get to do some joint trips out to Chicago, and those are some of my favorite memories of working with Brian. But he kind of kept it under.
And favorite memories in general, I would imagine.
Yeah. I shouldn't have been so limiting. But I would say the Brian King kind of like self-harmonizing Christmas medley is definitely also among them. And I'm not sure when I became aware of that. It might have been after we worked together, but that's going to be in the pantheon as well.
It's true. I've shown a dozen people at least that, including my family this past weekend when I was in Cleveland, because it is unbelievably impressive. Michael, what are the 3 things that you hated most about Brian?
Okay, we don't need to go there. But why? Since you did bring it up, though, I do have to say I have a little bit of a beef with you, because you did learn about my singing abilities, though you had not necessarily heard it. I remember when you actually learned about it, you and I were standing next to Stacey Cunningham, and she was like, "Oh my goodness, I didn't know you could sing. You need to be on stage next year at the Christmas or the holiday event that's held at the exchange." But the beef that I have is that I was doing a little bit of homework prior to our being able to spend time with you, and I learned something that you hid from me, which was that you were an original member of The Headset. Is this true? Can you tell me a little bit about The Headset? You were
Sure. I mean, I moved to New York not to kind of embed myself into the financial universe, but I wanted to be a musician. So The Headset was a rock band two of my college classmates and my brother. And we were playing kind of straight ahead New York 4-piece rock, well enough that we could, keep busy. We did a little bit of recording, and never well enough that we could actually quit our jobs and do it full time. So
But
it's a great way to be a young person in New York.
Yeah, no kidding. But stated as a percentage, how much of your outfit was chainmail?
Zero or something approaching zero.
all right, oh,
I might have had a
okay.
keychain. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we were never so good that we had roadies, and I feel like that's got to be the threshold for that to become your career.
Right.
Because otherwise,
You
you're
made it.
basically like playing for 40 minutes and loading gear for like 4 hours.
But you were a drummer and a vocalist?
I was the drummer. My brother was the singer,
Okay.
and we got to have like our own kind of like Gallagher brothers tensions, because the singer's
You mean-
obviously a prima donna and the drummer's obviously right.
So you don't mean Gallagher brothers like the magician?
And his brother.
Not the watermelon.
Yeah, because they had some issues too. So at first I was like, wow, that's a deep pull. But the musicians.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. But so again, that was something that I literally had no idea until very recently. But you said you actually it was an interest that you were hoping that could be a career for you?
Yeah, I mean, when I first moved to New York, I was, driven to move here so I could be closer to the band. At the time, I was like living in Boston and driving back and forth. Didn't make sense. So my first job in New York was working at RCA Records. And so I was working
Oh, wow.
back, that was when you had kind of Foo Fighters and My Morning Jacket and The Strokes and, like Christina Aguilera was big then.
Genie in a Bottle, that's Brian's favorite song.
So we had like the first like Kelly Clarkson records. So it was
wow.
a fun time to be
No kidding.
part of the New York music scene. It was not a good time to be in the record business. That was when I hadn't yet really figured out how to do downloads and streaming and anything. But they've since figured it out. The like epilogue to that story is my brother ended up also working at RCA Records, and he's stayed there, and that's just like his whole career has been with RCA, now Sony.
Oh
Wow.
So
Holy cow.
one of us is living my dream.
That's awesome. So another thing that I know you're passionate about was you are heavily involved in Wall Street REITs. Yes. So I think is that this weekend?
Yeah, the New York ride is this upcoming weekend.
How did you get involved with that?
Wait, quick thing for our audience. What is this?
Yeah.
So Wall Street Rides FAR, F.A.R., meaning for Autism Research, is an annual event that started in New York. It's now actually across a number of cities in North America. But it's largely the Wall Street community in kind of friendly competition, raising money through a bike ride, which could be anywhere from 4 miles to 100 kilometers, in support of a group called the Autism Science Foundation, which powers a lot of independent research, new research, and support for families affected by autism. So I brought into kind of that community in the early days of the ride's existence, and it's really blossomed into a very significant fundraiser now for autism research.
That's amazing. Now, I am not a master of the metric system, but is 100 kilometers approximately equal to 4 miles?
It's about 65 miles, I think.
Oh, well, that does not seem fair. I imagine the people riding 4 miles typically beat the people riding 100 kilometers then.
The guys doing the 100 kilometers start first.
Gotcha. That's smart. Wall Street, they know what they're doing.
No, it's a really, Wall Street's a place where there's a lot of competition. Obviously, like it's a very in many ways, it can be a zero-sum game, right? People are competing for
Yeah.
the same order flow, or they're competing for the same investment dollars, whatever it might be. So when there are opportunities for the community to come together and do things that are collaborative, it's a great reminder that there's a commonality between us and a lot of shared experience.
Yeah, that's
and they're
great.
not, they're not that many families in America that don't have some nexus to autism, whether it's a family member or a friend or other loved ones. So
Yeah.
it's been a really kind of gratifying experience to be just a part of that. Our company DriveWealth is participating as a team. We're a relatively small company compared to some of the others participating, but I think right now we're ranked third on the leaderboard. So
Oh, wow, not bad.
Can't
How many
help but
people
have a little bit of that Wall Street competitiveness in the collaboration.
Yeah.
And initially, that does sound impressive, but I'm going to ask the most important question: how many teams are there in the event? Because if there's 3, then you're in last place, and that's not that impressive. So yeah,
we're squarely in the top decile.
yeah. So spoken like a true finance person, speaking in deciles. That's great.
Maybe we can get like a podcast division for next year. We'll see if we can get you guys entered in the podcast division.
We are in. And so, because just quickly, because Brian hasn't told me, what DriveWealth does, because he likes to hoard information. It's his way of lording his power over people.
That's something a father figure might do.
So, he does know you so well. So talk just a little bit about what DriveWealth does?
Sure. So DriveWealth is a financial technology platform, and we power brokerage as a service for about 100 B2B partners around the world. And so what I mean by brokerage as a service is that we offer APIs that power investing and trading workflows for largely mobile applications for global retail investors. And so our APIs will allow you to open an account, fund an account, place a trade, get market data, get your tax statements, everything that you need in order to run a brokerage can be powered through our APIs. We'll support the US securities trading, so equities, options, fixed income, mutual fund securities for global retail that's either coming in through a traditional bank and broker dealer, or a digital wallet or a neobank or some other consumer application. And we end up through our 100 B2B partners powering trading for tens of millions of users around the world.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, it's a very different kind of structural place within the industry versus working at the exchange. And it's been a great education in terms of not only kind of the distinctions and concerns you have when you're dealing with retail versus more institutional participants, but like the nature of competition when you're competing with brokers versus at the exchange competing with kind of a mix of different participants. But nothing is kind of more kind of illustrative of the difference than going from a place that was 232 years old to a place that's a Series D growth stage company, and kind of moving at the speed of light. So it's a totally different universe, but it's been really, really satisfying.
Yeah, I think I would echo a little bit of that that difference of being a part of a startup ecosystem. Having been a part of BATS from the very beginning of that. And BATS was a competitor to the New York Stock Exchange, for those of you who may not be familiar. But being a part of a group where you feel like you're taking on the world, but that world that you're competing against, as you mentioned, was 200 plus years old, one of the first real companies in the United States. I mean, it was pretty fantastic to be a part of it. But then the day that I left BATS and walked in the doors of the New York Stock Exchange, who was our biggest competitor, like I always, I don't know, you look at it as a competitor, but then you walk in those doors and it's like, there's so much history here. I think that was the thing about the New York Stock Exchange that was so fascinating to me. Then to leave the New York Stock Exchange and go right back to a startup where literally employee number one. And that's it was pretty fascinating. But what I know what DriveWealth is doing is pretty fantastic. And you don't have a lot of competitors in that space, right?
I mean, arguably, like we're a little bit of a unique combination of capabilities. We have the APIs, which I was describing, that allow each of our partners to build their own front end experience that could be tailored for their client archetype, right? So you could say like our APIs could be used to build kind of your own version of Robinhood.
Right. And for any of our podcast viewers who don't know what API stands for, it's runs batted in. Okay, so sorry, Michael, you're saying.
No, if my parents were listening to the podcast, an API is a computer protocol that allows different computer systems to talk to each other.
Gotcha. It's pretty much what I said.
Well, and I will say that when you're talking about parents, my mom is, I think, our number one listener. So at least my mom will benefit from that.
Yeah, that's
Mrs. King. You have a lovely son. You did your job well. So we have kind of three components of the business: the APIs, an internalization capability, and then all of the execution, clearing, and custody capabilities that traditional brokers have. So we can help source order flow right at the edge, like right in frontier markets around the world. And the majority of our business is international. We'll bring that then into our internalization capability. We'll principally fill some portion of it. And then we have the more traditional kind of back-end clearing and custody capabilities like a Pershing. So you sort of have, the best of each of those three worlds. Now, obviously, we're a young, growing company, so we need to mature each of those functions. But I think it's somewhat unique for us to have that full value chain.
Yeah, no, that is. And are you in your office right now, or are you at home?
I'm in the office. We moved. The company was founded in New Jersey.
Boo! Sorry, go on.
New Jersey is one of the three best states in the tri-state area. We're founded in New Jersey, and the company, kind of grew up there and moved closer to Manhattan as it matured. And at the beginning of this year, we crossed the Hudson and we're now on Liberty Street, just between the New York Fed and the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
Very cool.
No, it is. I like downtown. It's a good. I lived and worked in New York for almost 15 years, and I hated it, but it was very cool down there. Our offices were at 26 Broadway, so right in front of the Bowl. The old Standard Oil building, and that was a cool experience. One random cool experience was when the Giants won the Super Bowl. It had been their first win, I think. The first time they won it with Eli Manning. And these are old buildings. And so the windows open. And so we were on, I can't remember what floor we were on, the 5th floor, something like that. But so we opened our windows. And because they were having the Super Bowl parade, which starts like right around where we are. And I'm looking out the window, and across the street at the other old buildings, there are people with their windows and their buildings open, but they have stepped out onto the ledges of their building, which the ledges are probably only 18 inches deep, maybe. And I'm like, someone is going to fall during this parade. And so I missed the entire parade because I could not take my eyes off of everyone standing on the ledge, because I was certain that at least one person, if not 20, were going to fall to their death. But no one did.
No. The ticker tape parade tradition in New York is pretty cool. I don't know if the Giants are going to get a parade this year, but we'll see. The president of DriveWealth and actually the founder of DriveWealth are both, huge Jets fans. So a lot of optimism about Aaron Rodgers. We'll see how the season progresses.
Yeah, I predict not well.
I'm sorry. I'm still stuck on the fact that you said 18 inches. You're like, the ledges are only 18 inches.
Is this not 18 inches?
No, that's not 18 inches.
I apologize for the audience. Like I said, I didn't know that 100 kilometers was not 4 miles. So.
Yeah, well, we're all types of measurement discussion today.
This is a podcast focused on depth perception, right?
Beyond. How do we measure beyond?
Right, exactly. No, I was going to also start a bike race charity to cure this lack of depth perception, but it ended in over 50 deaths. Because if you lack depth perception, bike races are not good. Not good. It's a lesson for our audience.
So I've only seen one ticker tape parade, and it was when the women's national soccer team won, I think,
the World
Cup. The World Cup. And so I was downtown for that, and it was amazing for me. I thought it was really cool to be able to experience that.
Yeah, no, there are only so many occasions where like you can pull your kid out of school and nobody cares. And that's certainly one of them.
Yeah, no. Another one was I wanted to go to McDonald's for lunch, so I pulled my kid out of school, and it was, I thought I made the right choice, priorities wise.
Right.
Yeah, education or a Big Mac. Have you ever had a Big Mac, Michael?
I have. My son, my 8-year-old, recently had his first Big Mac, and it was a little bit of a life milestone for him. I can understand your enthusiasm.
See, Michael gets it.
He gets it. He gets it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right. So who is your favorite robber baron from the Gilded Age?
It's hard to pick just one.
Isn't it? That's what I always say.
So you gotta go Carnegie, right? You got Carnegie Hall.
See, that's right. Yeah. And see, he knew the robber barons right off the bat.
Jeremy has a very unique passion for the Gilded Age. I think we've already had 2 of our podcast episodes have featured.
They have. Yeah. What was the first one? Of Cornelius Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt.
And I can't remember what the other one was. It may have just been the Gilded Age.
Yeah, Gilded Age generally.
I can't remember. Yeah. So no, I do. I love the Gilded Age. It's fascinating.
Well, I have the benefit of living pretty close by to the Rockefeller State Preserve as well. So I'm awash in robber baron patronage.
That was a wash and patronage.
Wow.
In one time, he is way smarter than you.
Harvard.
Yeah. Well, that's right.
Harvard.
He went to Harvard. I forgot about that.
As I said, I speak slowly, and I don't have much to say, so I got to really make it count.
So, what was you grew up in Boston?
I grew up in Ohio.
Oh, okay.
Where in Ohio?
So I heard you say Cleveland. I grew up outside Columbus in a town called Dublin.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. I lived in Columbus for my 15 years in New York. There was 2.5 years in between that I was at a private equity firm in Columbus. I lived in Westerville, which is not too far from Dublin, was a suburb of Columbus. And one of my best friends lives in Dublin.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, growing up in Ohio, my father's family grew up in Shaker Heights, so like all my sports allegiances were Cleveland.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry about that.
And so it's been kind of a long life. Now with my kids growing up in New York, their mother's side of the family are huge Giants fans. So like I'm trying to encourage the pain of the Browns affiliation to end with me.
Yeah. No, that was growing up. I was a fairly dumb child, but I was smart enough to witness the pain around me and decide at a very early age that I didn't want any part of that. And so I never became a fan of any Cleveland fans because I'm like, I don't want to cry all the time. And so I didn't. And it's worked out well because I moved to Kansas City from New York. I moved to Kansas City about 11 years ago. And since I've moved here and adopted all the teams, because why not? The Major League Soccer team won a championship. The Kansas City Royals went to 2 World Series, winning 1. And the Kansas City Chiefs have gone to 4 Super Bowls and won 3. My dad, who died at 62, but lived his whole life in Cleveland and didn't experience 1 championship, not one, in his entire life. And I've had 5 in my 11 years here.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to be able to shake it. Like I like it's just a masochism. Like
Yeah.
it's part of.
No, you have to make that decision young. Because once you're in, and nothing can change that. And so I'm sorry.
Truly.
That's
I
all
am
right.
sorry.
Yeah. My son asked at the beginning of the year if we could get Super Bowl tickets if the Giants play the Browns, and I assured him yes.
Yes, I am right.
I love that.
I think your money is safe. And for our audience members, please vote on if you think it was incredibly embarrassing when Brian asked his supposed friend, "You're from Boston, right?" And in fact, he's not from Boston at all. Nowhere even close. So,
well, I didn't even know that he was a musician. So I clearly don't know him at all. But so what was the drive to go to Harvard? When did that start? And tell me about that experience.
I mean, Harvard was an amazing experience. I mean, coming from Ohio, I think I did really well in high school. I was able to like participate in a lot of different things. And I don't know if it's still something that colleges care about, but like back then people were like, you need to be well-rounded. And like Ohio was a place where it's very easy to participate in a lot of different activities like music and sports and, kind of do well at school. So I was kind of a big fish in a relatively small pond in the suburbs of Columbus, and then found myself as a pretty small fish in a very big university. So I learned coursework stuff, but I think more I just learned there was a much bigger world out there than I really had encountered. And the other students were really fascinating and from totally different walks of life. And it was a really good stepping stone, I think, before moving to New York, to have Boston as kind of a home base for, what turned out to be about 5 years.
Yeah. Did it help you like realize that you never wanted to be like those people in Boston? And it gave you a good template for what not to be like as a human being? Is that how that experience shaped you?
I've learned on every step.
That's funny. So yeah, my life, I started in Florida and then I moved to Kansas City. So I don't really have a tremendous amount of exposure. Like especially when I worked for the New York Stock Exchange, I was in New York a lot. But to actually live it, the culture, I think the closest thing that I probably would have to that type of metropolitan type lifestyle of a big city would be, we moved over to London for a short while, and like that was pretty fantastic. It was pre-kids being in school, but the kids were with us, so it was an amazing experience. But I loved being in London and probably would go back if I ever had the opportunity. But yeah, the experience, I think, of being, you said you didn't love the New York City experience, but you're raising a family in the city.
Yeah. I mean, we're in Westchester, so my brother would say I live upstate. Look, I loved Ohio when I was there. I loved Boston when I was there. But I don't imagine ever leaving New York. It's a really singular place. And is it, the nice part of being here is that the world kind of comes to you. We just got off of the UNGA week where you had, people from around the world convening here. Certainly at the New York Stock Exchange, when I was there, and Brian, when you were there, like we had visitors from, kind of leaders of like every variety, whether it was cultural or political or, athletic, like everybody was kind of convening there to use that platform to advance their missions. But yeah, New York, you have a little bit of the whole world. And then with DriveWealth, we're powering these 100 partners around the world. This is the first job where I've really had to do a lot of international travel. And so it's been really exciting to like go to places I'd never been before, learn a little bit about their culture, and then also a little bit like the different kind of constraints and regulatory challenges and other just sort of like idiosyncrasies of trying to support an investing business in, kind of pioneer frontier markets, or in like more developed markets, but with very different kind of social norms or different risk tolerances. It's a very, very diverse world. And so in New York, you get to experience quite a bit of it, but when you actually have the chance to go and travel and kind of hit all the continents, that's a pretty special experience.
Yeah. Is your favorite part of New York how it smells like rotting garbage all summer long?
You haven't been here in a while.
One of your favorites.
You've clearly not been here in a while, because now it just smells like weed all the time. What you described is that's a very
nostalgic,
it's like a nostalgic view of the summer here.
That's awesome. All right, so you're doing a lot of traveling. I said probably my favorite place that I've been would be London. What would you say your favorite place? And Jeremy, you too. What was your favorite place you've traveled?
The favorite place I've ever traveled, I was only there for a few days, but and this was many years ago, but I thought Hong Kong was like just an amazing synthesis of like city and ocean and mountains, and it's accessible as an English speaker, but it's also super exotic, and the food's incredible, and like it's just, it's like an overwhelming and like amazing experience. And I was going on business, so I didn't have to spend the like outrageous money that it cost to live there. Hong Kong for me.
Yeah. It's funny because in my head, I was debating between Singapore and Hong Kong, because when I was at Second Market, I was looking at us expanding into Asia, and those were the two leading candidates. And, there were two amazing things to me about Hong Kong. So my choice, I think, is probably Singapore, but I did also love Hong Kong. The two amazing things, when Michael mentioned the mountains, is like, these aren't mountains that are like gorgeous and kind of off in the distance. Literally, you have like a skyscraper, and then right behind it, I mean like 10 to 50 feet behind it, is the base of a mountain that just goes straight up. Like it is surreal. It's almost like a dreamscape, because these things aren't usually literally right next to one another. Right. So it was very surreal. Very surreal.
But no, you described it perfectly. It's like this mashup of all of your favorite places.
Yeah.
And maybe living there would be, kind of a different experience, but like as a place to visit for several days, like it was pretty extraordinary.
Yeah. No, it's true. And the second thing about it I found, and I lived in New York for almost 15 years, which is a very cosmopolitan and international and multicultural city, but not like Hong Kong. Hong Kong is the most international, multicultural city I have ever been in. Like I probably, when I was there also on business, I may have met, 30 people, maybe 3 of them were from the same country. Like that's it. Every single person was from a different place in the world. It was just wild. Just almost no overlapping countries in terms of the people I was meeting. It was something else. Singapore, which I really liked, was there were two things. Well, one thing I don't know if I liked it about it as much as I found it very interesting, which is if you would have chloroformed me and put me on the plane, I don't know why one would do that, but let's say that that's what happened. And I woke up and got off the plane and you said, "Hey, welcome to Miami." I would have been like, "Oh yeah, here I am in Miami," because it is like the weather, the palm trees, everything like that, but also everything there is English first. Like, Hong Kong is very much like bilingual. Like it's Cantonese and English split 50-50. But with Singapore, it's like the signs of the restaurants and the buildings and everything. It's all in English. And it's just, when you talk to people, it's English first. I was not expecting that, traveling 19 hours nonstop to land effectively in Miami. So that was interesting. But I did like it. The other thing about it, so I have, Brian, you know this, Michael, you don't. I have the palate of a 9-year-old boy. So, I do not have sophisticated tastes. And so when I was in Singapore, there was some exotic eating going on, and I, soldiered on. But then at one point, Barry Silbert, the founder and CEO of Second Market, he and I were walking. It was around lunchtime. We had some time to kill before the next meeting, and we were passing a Burger King. And I said to him, like, Barry, I have been a great sport this whole trip. I've tried all these exotic foods that just to kill me. Can we just have lunch at Burger King? And he just sighed and shook his head, and he's like, fine. I cannot believe we're having lunch at Burger King while we're in Singapore. So we go into Burger King and we each order the same thing, which is, like the chicken sandwiches that are like thin and oval shaped, the Burger King, and kind of elongated, almost like a sub. So we sit down and we eat it. And after we each take a bite, and he looks up at me and he goes, I'm not going to lie. This may be the best chicken sandwich I have ever had. And he was right. It was so good. I was having the same thought as I bit in. I could not believe how good this chicken sandwich was from Burger King, but Singapore does it right.
So we've gone from McDonald's to how have we covered McDonald's and Burger King
all around the world?
Podcast. That's kind of amazing.
I didn't emphasize that Dublin, Ohio was the home of Wendy's. I mean, we really could have touched all.
Wow. Thank you to our sponsors. Well, Michael, we thank you so much for joining us. I know you have a lot of things that you're doing, but again, as our first guest of Beyond the Exchange, of which you have worked for several, and are helping to bring markets together. Again, just so great to reconnect with you. Really appreciate you spending some time with us, and good luck this weekend on your 4-mile bike ride. Actually, how long?
Or 64.
How long will you be doing?
30 is the plan.
Wow.
30 miles.
Yeah. The 100K, you really need to be like a proper cyclist with good gear. I attempted it a couple of years where it actually got rained out. Like they didn't permit people to do it because it was going to be too kind of dangerous. But when I pulled up to do it on like my,
your Schwinn.
Boy, you both picked great bikes. That was perfect for your Huffy and your Schwinn.
That was
They've
good.
got these like graphite bikes and like, specialized gloves and stuff. And they're like, this will not work for you. I'm sorry. 30 miles is probably enough.
So how many days do you get to do those 30 miles?
It should just take, I don't know, it should take like 90 minutes.
Wow. That's awesome.
That's pretty good.
Either last year or the year before, I was actually so embarrassed by my crappy bike that they had bikes for rent. And so, I was like, I'll just use one of the rental bikes.
Wow.
Because mine's obviously, insufficient. Well, the rental bike broke like 8 miles in.
Oh my gosh.
So I got like rescued, which was its own kind of special brand of embarrassment. Brought back to the start, given a new bike, and then I had to do the 30
Start from the beginning?
8 I'd already done.
Oh, my goodness. That's not cool.
That year it took a while.
Yeah, that is not cool. To add insult to injury, did you have to ride on the handlebars of the rescue bike as they pedaled you back to the start line?
No, but I do think I was in a middle seat.
That is awesome. Awesome. Well, Michael, again, thank you so much, buddy. Great to catch up with you, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you, Brian. Great to participate, and thank you to Brian's mom and my mom for watching.